Salve, legionari.
The life of Julius Caesar was a life of many facets, many personalities, and many accomplishments combined. But in summary, his name alone, after 2,000 years, remains the most famous symbol of power and Roman heritage, Julius Caesar. This is sufficient without needing further explanation, presentation, or motivation to justify a series of videos dedicated to the figure of Julius Caesar by this channel. So, let's begin. This narration will focus on the most important, interesting, and useful aspects for understanding Caesar's life, all explained with our usual simplicity. Along the way, there will be different tones, sometimes lighthearted, sometimes exciting. In short, let's embark together on this important journey into the life of one of the personalities who undoubtedly changed the course of history and humanity. With our own participation and satisfaction, we begin the life of Julius Caesar. The origins of Julius Caesar are the first thing to remember. They are of great significance. According to tradition, Julius Caesar and his family are descended from the goddess Venus, the goddess of beauty, one of the most important deities in Roman mythology. Venus had a son, Aeneas, who escaped the city of Troy after the Trojan War, crossed the entire Mediterranean, and eventually arrived in Lazio. His descendants, including Ascanius, also known as Iulus, went on to found Rome. Therefore, according to tradition, Caesar's family is directly linked to the gods and the founders of Rome. Even one of Caesar's grandfathers is said to have married a woman from the Marsi family, who would give birth to one of the first kings of Rome. So, the first thing to understand is that Caesar boasts a truly extraordinary genealogy, a genealogy that many could only dream of. But despite these ancient and illustrious origins, by the time of Caesar's birth, his family was not very influential. It was a family in decline, not significant in Roman politics. They held no important responsibilities and were quite poor, so much so that Caesar was born in the Suburra, an area northwest of the Roman Forum, a poor neighborhood filled with many houses crammed together. In the summer, the area was hot and crowded. I wouldn't say it was a ghetto, but it was almost like one. This is where Caesar was born. His father held no notable positions. He had served as a praetor for a year, nothing important. On the other hand, his mother, Aurelia, was a true Roman noblewoman, not very influential herself, but well-educated and possessing great Roman values. She was the prototype of the ancient Roman woman who raised her son with love, understanding, and support. She was a beautiful, present, and important mother who had a decisive influence on Caesar's life. Alongside Miphon, a great teacher from Gaul, who provided him with a very comprehensive education, Caesar grew up to be a well-mannered and well-educated young man. We even know that his first girlfriend's name was Sophia. They were together when he was 13 or 14 years old. Thus, Caesar was born into a situation where all the hopes of his family's recovery and glory were placed upon him. It should be noted that his family did hold some political influence because his paternal aunt, Julia, married Gaius Marius, a man who saved Rome from the Cimbri and Teutones, winning several battles. He was a hero and the leader of the Populares, a political faction that sought to help the common people, the masses, those closest to the people. Caesar's family, being connected to the Populares, meant that Caesar was born under this influence. At the age of 16 or 17, he already obtained his first priestly position, becoming the Flamen Dialis, responsible for the cult of Capitoline Jupiter. This might seem like a positive development, a sign of Caesar's rising status. But this religious office came with several restrictions, which I'm going to list. For example, the Flamen Dialis could not ride a horse, could not see armed soldiers, could not have any nuts on his body, could not touch or even mention goats, could not touch raw meat or beans, and could not pass under vines if they were tied. No one could sleep in his bed, and he had to cut his hair and nails according to specific rules. We can imagine that a 16-year-old boy might see this as more a burden than an honor. But this was his first official role. However, the political influence of the Populares also led Julius Caesar to leave his girlfriend and marry Cornelia, the daughter of Cinna, a colleague of Gaius Marius. This marriage further aligned him with the Populares faction. From this marriage, their daughter Julia was born, a wonderful daughter much loved by Caesar, who would later play an important role in history. But the fundamental problem for this young Julius Caesar was the civil wars, which were won by Cornelius Sulla, the leader of the Optimates, the senatorial aristocracy that then took control. This made Caesar's life more difficult because the main opponent of his political faction now held full power. Sulla implemented significant reforms, giving more power to the Senate and changing many of the rules of the Roman state. He did this to restore balance, among other reasons. Sulla greatly reduced the power of the tribunes of the plebs, who had previously been able to block laws that could harm the plebeians, the weakest members of society. After Sulla's reforms, the tribunes no longer had this power. In this context of excessive power held by political enemies, Julius Caesar received two orders from the Sullan regime. The first was to relinquish his priestly office, which he did, likely without much regret. The second was an offer he couldn't refuse, to divorce his wife Cornelia. This was meant as a sign that he would not oppose Sulla's regime. But Caesar decided to rebel. He refused to divorce his wife, fully aware that this meant opposing Sulla and risking being placed on the infamous proscription lists, which meant legal execution for political enemies. This brave choice led him to be placed on the proscription lists, forcing him to flee. He moved from house to house at night until he fell ill from the strain, fear, and emotion. At one point, Caesar was captured. He was taken by a man named Vibius, who intended to kill him and take his possessions. Here, Caesar's extraordinary ability to save himself in moments of crisis became evident. With incredible clarity and strength of mind, Caesar convinced Vibius that it would be difficult to kill him and carry the body around. Instead, he proposed paying Vibius what he would have earned by turning him over to the authorities. In this way, Caesar, a young man of just 18, saved his life, demonstrating an extraordinary ability to navigate situations that would have caused others absolute panic. Meanwhile, Caesar's mother and his wife were not idle. His mother initiated an extensive campaign of persuasion to reach Sulla and save her son, appealing to various intermediaries and politicians. In the end, Sulla agreed to remove Caesar from the proscription lists and let him go, though he reportedly remarked, "There are many Mariuses in this young man," recognizing the potential strength in Caesar. Thus, Caesar saved his life thanks to his own resourcefulness, his mother's efforts, and favorable circumstances. But while Sulla held such power, it was safer for Caesar to leave Rome. Thanks to his extraordinary mother, he secured a position that allowed him to leave Rome and go to Asia, where he would be safer. What happens in Asia? In Asia, there was a Roman administrator named Minucius Thermus who had to manage a difficult situation. We are looking at the island of Mytilene, a small island with a strong, independent government that resisted Roman rule and continued to rebel. The only way to resolve this small but troublesome rebellion was to intervene militarily, which required some assistance. This assistance came from King Nicomedes IV of Bithynia, who had a grievance with the Romans to supply ships if needed. However, Nicomedes was delaying, taking too long to provide the ships. Caesar was sent to Bithynia to resolve the situation. Caesar succeeded in his mission, securing the ships from Nicomedes. But here comes a note of gossip. According to some sources, Caesar did more than just diplomacy. It was rumored that he became the lover of Nicomedes, engaging in homosexual liaisons, with tales of them spending nights together in a scandalous manner. Decades later, legionaries would still tease him about this relationship. However, despite this colorful gossip, the mission was successful. Nicomedes sent the ships, and Caesar participated in the siege of Mytilene. The siege went well. Mytilene was defeated, and Caesar was awarded the civic crown, a recognition given for valor, such as saving a comrade. Here we have another clue. Even as a young man, Caesar demonstrated great courage on the battlefield. Caesar had other assignments in Asia, but news soon arrived that Sulla had died. So, Caesar packed his bags and returned to Rome. When Caesar returned to Rome, he found himself in a complex situation. Pompey, one of Sulla's protégés and heirs, wanted to maintain Sulla's reforms. Meanwhile, many others wanted to dismantle them. In this struggle for power that usually follows the death of a powerful leader, Caesar found himself in the midst of the turmoil. He was approached by Aemilius Lepidus, who asked him to participate in a revolt against the Sullan constitution. But Caesar didn't trust him, seeing him as a mere populist agitator, and wisely chose not to participate. Instead, Caesar decided to focus on something else, his passion and interest in law. He became a lawyer. The Roman legal system worked differently from ours today. In those times, any citizen could accuse another, and if the evidence made sense, the accuser would become the prosecutor. Caesar decided to take on two high-profile cases. The first was against Dolabella, who had been the governor of Macedonia. Dolabella had stolen everything he could, and Caesar brought charges against him, launching a courageous and risky operation because Dolabella was rich and connected to the Sullans. Caesar's courage and effectiveness in court were remarkable, even though he ultimately lost the case when Dolabella was saved by Aurelius Cotta, one of the greatest lawyers of the time. Caesar's second trial was against Hybrida, who had also governed Greece and had been far from correct in his conduct. This time, Caesar was even more effective, and Hybrida had no one who could save him. However, Hybrida was ultimately saved by the intervention of the tribunes of the plebs, who cited procedural defects. Nevertheless, Caesar's bravery and skill were evident to everyone, showcasing his extraordinary ability as a prosecuting lawyer. However, this courage exposed Caesar to political retaliation once again. To avoid this, he decided to leave Rome for a while. He went to Rhodes, an island with a famous school of philosophy, a common destination for young Roman aristocrats. On his way to Rhodes, something dramatic happened. He was captured by pirates who infested the Mediterranean. How would Caesar react? We'll see in the next video, where we'll delve into this extraordinary episode. So, not to be captured by pirates, subscribe to the channel. After all, you're not Caesar. I highly recommend it. I've done it myself. Stay connected, and I'll see you in the next video for more thrilling moments in the life of Julius Caesar.